So after Tupac's mom died, and I noticed the connections to the death of Prince, I also remembered that Tupac was in the movie Above the Rim, that's all about basketball and whatnot. I've been talking about how it's just a lot of events not dealing with sports actually are connected to the sports. And I've talked a lot about the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and just especially the NBA overall. But I went back, like I said, and I looked at more Tupac stuff. And I mean, just first off, so you understand what I'm talking about, I talk a lot about, gematria and also how they code it to the calendars and whatnot. In gematria, Tupac Shakur just so happens to equal 139, and then Tupac ends up dying on September 13th, which in a lot of other places they write the date 13/9 instead of 9/13, so he dies on 13/9. His name adds up to 139. But the last album that he put out before he died was called All Eyes on Me. It just so happened to come out on the first day of Lupercalia in the year 1996, which is 2/13, and then he died exactly 213 days later. So he puts his last album out, or his last living album out, and then he dies 213 days after it came out on 2/13. In gematria, All Eyes on Me equals 133 the big way and 52 the small way. And that's a typo there. That actually is a Z. These numbers actually fit with the Z and not the S. But anyway, if you write out 306 score and 6, it just so happens to equal 133, just like All Eyes on Me, right? The mark of the beast. Also the big way, 313. Remember, Pope Francis became the Pope on 3/13 of 2013, which can also be written as 13/3, right? 133, 313. Also, Tupac's mom just so happened to die on 5/2. All Eyes on Me equals 52. Anyway, if you go from the day that album came out, February 13th, to May 2nd, I know that's not the same year, but just still interesting. It's a span of 79 days. Pope Francis turns 79 years old in December. LeBron James's full name equals 79. Last year, a lot of this stuff goes back to the Philadelphia train wreck last year that happened at 9:23 p.m. on May 12th. LeBron James is in the movie Trainwreck. Trainwreck in gematria equals 122. Pope Francis in gematria equals 122. That train wreck was at 923. LeBron James in Jewish gematria equals 923. Pope Francis came to the United States on his 923rd day as Pope. He went to the White House the very next day at 9:23 in the morning on September 23rd, which is 923. But anyway, if you go from that train wreck to Pope Francis' 79th birthday, it's a span of 219 days. February 13th to May 2nd, 2 months, 19 days, the 219. I've also mentioned this in regards to the Golden State Warriors. 219, back-to-back championships equals 219. And the reason that Tupac's death is so significant is because it was in 1996. Tupac, his birthday just so happens to be June 16th. In 1996, that was when the 96 Chicago Bulls won the NBA Finals. They won back-to-back championships. It was the year they got the 72 wins. This year has been all about the 1996 Chicago Bulls. Just lots of comparisons. The Warriors defeated their 44-game home win streak. They beat the 72 wins. A lot more to this. Just please see my previous videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. Prince even just so happened to co-write one of the songs on this album. It was track number 8. Prince was one of the co-writers. It's called Hearts of Men. And even in the song, Tupac even says, "I died and came back." He did that in a whole bunch of stuff, like definitely foreshadowed a lot of weird things in Tupac stuff. He knew he was going to die. He talked about it a lot. Hearts of Men, though, in Gematria equals 131 and 59. Pope Francis equals 59 the small way. Prince Charles equals 131. I've talked about if Queen Elizabeth dies, then Prince Charles would become King Charles III. And then during the English Civil War, the Cavaliers, a Cavalier is a follower of King Charles during the English Civil War. Also, in regards to sports, the word championship equals 131. It also just so happened to be track 8 on All Eyes on Me. Track 8 in Gematria equals 323. In Jewish Gematria, just like Lucifer, just like Catholicism. I even talked about how YouTube or whatever keeps showing me a bunch of this stuff that was coded to May 13th. Thankfully, nothing happened that day. And I also mentioned that I didn't know for sure if it was that day. It could be other days that are connected to it. But they showed me a lot of 134, and May 13th just so happened to be the 134th day. But if you write out King Charles III in Gematria, it also equals 134. And there's some other significant days that could match up to that. But anyway, my name just so happens to equal 323 in Jewish Gematria. I also talked about how Prince's death ties into the moon. There's a moon theme and whatnot, and it ties back into the blood moons, the 4 blood moons or whatever, the tetrad. Well, there was a partial blood moon on 323. And the reason that's so interesting is because it's super rare. That really doesn't happen after a tetrad or whatever. So we got a partial blood moon on 323, almost like there was 4.5 or 5 blood moons. Also, this number really sticks out for the fact that the movie Above the Rim, which I'm going to mention more about later, comes out. It came out on 323. So, interesting day for that movie to come out. It's about basketball and whatnot. The whole album, All Eyes on Me, has 27 songs. So this was track 8 of 27. There's been a whole lot of foreshadowing to this day as well. 8/27 is the robot takeover day that Olivia Munn talked about. 8/27 this year just so happens to be Obama's 7th year, 7th month, and 7th day as president. It also just so happens to be the 240th day of 2016 and will be in the 240th year of the United States after July 4th. So interesting. Also in regards to the Warriors, Draymond Green said, "I am not a robot," the day before Olivia Munn said this. He said, "I am not a robot." I just want to show some stuff really quick because Draymond Green in Gematria just so happens to equal 143. You wonder why he said, "I am not a robot"? Well, here you go. 143. And I said, you know what, Draymond, you are a robot. And if you type it, "I am a robot," I'm going to, oh, I am a robot. The 323 that I've been mentioning. And it really sticks out too. A lot of people, I'm not going to pull it up, but did you watch the last few games or whatever where he's given the interview and he just sits there and all of a sudden acts like he's mind controlled or something's wrong with him and he just sits there and stares with his mouth open, almost like he is a robot? So pretty interesting that he would say, "I am not a robot," and then he sure seems to be a robot in some of these interviews. And "I am a robot" equals 323, just like Lucifer. Really makes you wonder. Also interesting that Draymond Green did say this against the Oklahoma City Thunder, the game that was on 2/27, where the Warriors scored 121 points. And then they played them again on 3/3, where Prince was there, and the Warriors scored 121 points. And the total score just so happened to be 227. 227, the number connected to pi. It's also connected to 49 and Valentine's Day, a whole bunch of stuff I've mentioned previously. The 49th prime is 227. But anyway, back to the Tupac stuff. It just all goes together, you know. There's so much stuff interrelated. I mentioned before how Tupac's death had a lot to do with the number 7. I can't remember it all, you know. I never went back and looked it up. I just talked about how I talked about this clear back in like the early 2000s and whatnot. But he died at the age of 25. 2 plus 5 is 7. Shot on the 7th day. If you count that day, he dies 7 days later. He dies at 4:03, which equals 7. And then he even has this album after he comes out, Machiavelli, the 7-Day Theory. But anyway, if you go from All Eyes on Me to the day that the Machiavelli, the 7-Day Theory album came out, just so happens to be a span of 266 days. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope, 923, the 266th day of the year. Interesting, it's also 38 weeks. The word death equals 38. So, you know, he rapped forever about how he knew he was going to die. And then his 2 albums come out 38 weeks apart after he dies or whatever. Also, if you break up this album here, the Don Killuminati, the 7-Day Theory, the Don Killuminati equals 197 and 80, and 7-Day Theory equals 219 and 84. Just interesting because I've mentioned a lot of the 197 around the Cleveland Cavaliers, even in Gematria, you know, and the death of Prince. Prince in Gematria equals 197. Talked about LeBron. LeBron equals 197. My computer will load. Charles, like Prince Charles, Charles equals 207. And if you write out 207, it equals 197. And there's other 197s that I've mentioned. If you go back and just watch the Cavs games, a lot of the times the total score is 197. Cleveland Cavaliers win 2016 NBA Finals, I believe, equals 197 as well. Also, the 219 back-to-back championships equals 219, so, you know, who knows? Interesting, I've been talking about it forever, how it seems like they're coding both of these teams, and it's really hard to judge who's going to win. Because it seems like they're both, the coding is telling you that both teams are going to win, which is really weird. Also, 80 is interesting because King Charles III equals 80. I've done tons of videos in regards to the 80, clear back to the Miss Universe pageant, even tied into Jimmy Carter's grandson dying and whatnot, but gonna move on here. So Tupac also sampled Prince on the album, the Machiavelli album, the 7-Day Theory, and it was on the song To Live and Die in LA. Just interesting, one of the lyrics talks about this go out for 92.3 and 106. I know these are the LA radio stations, but just still interesting, it's the 923 and 106. Gregorian to Julian, 923 is the same as October 26th, or September 23rd and October 6th are the same day if you convert them Gregorian to Julian and whatnot. Or this Gregorian to Julian. This would be the Gregorian, but just pretty interesting. It says the song also features Val Young. Interesting that her birthday is June 13th, the 165th day of the year. A day that I keep getting shown along with the 134 that YouTube was showing me. Lots of other stuff with that as well. I don't want to talk about it, otherwise the video will be 3 hours long. But just see my last probably 5-6 videos in regards to my YouTube copyright claim / strike. I talk about this a whole lot. It even connects to my personal life, which is pretty weird. The song that he sampled by Prince was called Do Me Baby. And wouldn't you know, it came out on the 197th day of 1982. Prince 197, LeBron, Charles, It also came off the album called Controversy. Controversy equals 57. Prince dies at the age of 57. The night of a full moon. Moon equals 57. Talked about the connections to Vanity, the Prince protege who died at the age of 57 on 2/15. I mean, just lots of 57 stuff around Prince. It was also Prince's 4th album, and then it was Tupac's 4th track. So 44, the number that's usually around death. Kill equals 44. Also, 2 of the tracks on that Machiavelli album feature this guy here. His name's Prince Ital Joe. I just thought it was interesting that it had a guy named Prince in there. Well, look at that. He died on 16/5 or May 16th. Once again, that 165 that I'm telling you, YouTube was trying to tell me about. I also believe that they were trying to show me maybe the number 105. And the reason that I say that is every time that they were trying to show me something, they would do something to one of my old videos. Old videos equals 105, just like Blood Moon. Even a long time ago, I was making a video, and randomly my iTunes started playing, and it was playing the song Timba, or whatever. It's going down, I'm yelling timber, or however it goes. And there was something to do with that equaled 105. I can't remember it all, but I feel like they were trying to show me 105, and maybe that was just trying to show me the moon theme. I talked about how The Simpsons episode that killed Prince on 11/2, and then Prince died on the 112th day of the year. They also killed Neil Armstrong and George Clooney, and Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon. More to it than that. But anyway, this guy here with Prince in his name, his real name Joe Paquette equals 65, just like Philadelphia. That's where the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is from. Prince also equals 65 in gematria. So, pretty interesting. But anyway, like I said, I noticed a lot of stuff connected around basketball. I thought I'd go back and watch Above the Rim, because Tupac's like the gangster, and his brother comes back, and his brother's the good guy who... It's really the stupidest movie, actually. I used to love this movie. But, I mean, like, his brother leaves because Nutso, he accidentally gets a guy to kill himself on accident by trying to slap the rim, and he falls out a window. That's pretty much what the whole point of the movie is. It's actually really stupid. But, back in the 90s, it was a pretty bomb-ass movie. But yeah, moral of the story, I just want to move on here. You can watch the movie for yourself if you want, but it came out on the 3/23, where I said there was the partial blood moon. Even has a $6.5 million budget. Running time of 96 minutes. Freemasonry equals 96. Or, I mean, actually, Freemason equals 96. Freemasonry equals 139, just like Tupac Shakur. Just like the day that Tupac died. Anyway, if you go from the day this movie came out to 5/2 of 1996, a span of 2 years, 1 month, 9 days. A lot like the 219 that I've seen a lot. Just found that pretty interesting. I also did go back and rewatch this movie. I write in here that I did go back and rewatch this movie, but the main character is trying to go to Georgetown, but he's caught up in the hood or whatever. He joins Tupac or Birdie's gang, and he's going to play on his team and whatnot. But Georgetown super sticks out to me because in regards to Philadelphia, once again, Georgetown is where Allen Iverson went. Allen Iverson, famous for being a Philadelphia 76er. I have a whole bunch of videos, like a 6-part video thing on Allen Iverson and how he's surrounded by the number 56. But anyway, Allen Iverson went to Georgetown. Also, that's where Patrick Ewing went. And Allen Iverson and Patrick Ewing are the only 2 people out of Georgetown to ever be the number 1 pick in the draft. Also, one of the things that really got me to think about May 13th being a significant day was because I've seen a lot of these 134, 341, 431 code and whatnot. One of the first things that I ever saw was noticed it was the Virginia Cavaliers coach in the college basketball tournament. He collapsed with 34.1 seconds left. I talked about how it's connected to the Virginia, or just Cavaliers and whatnot, and the Cavaliers collapsing and whatnot, just tons of other stuff. But he collapsed in a game against Hampton, Virginia. That is where Allen Iverson went to high school. Iverson also drafted in 1996, the year that Tupac died, the year the Bulls got 72 wins and whatnot. So, super interesting that they would include this, or the movie would have Georgetown in it. Also, Iverson was born the same day as Prince in 1975. Prince dies at the age of 57. The Reflection, 75, 57. They also, it's 6-7, Revelation equals 67. Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation. Patrick Ewing, though, even more sticks out at this point to me. Right now, he's the associate head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, the team that Michael Jordan owns. He's even born in Kingston, Jamaica. We've talked a lot about the royal family and whatnot. So Kingston, Jamaica. I even just made a video about how 50 Cent is connected to Tupac and Mike Tyson and whatnot. 50 Cent was shot by Mike Tyson's, or supposedly shot by Mike Tyson's bodyguard. Tupac died the night after going to the Mike Tyson fight. Anyway, 50 Cent is from Jamaica, New York, which is a part of Queens. But Patrick Ewing also just so happened to be his first year as a coach, just so happened to be with the Washington Wizards, the assistant coach. This was in Michael Jordan's final year playing basketball. The last game that Michael Jordan played was against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Cavs coach, Tyronn Lue, he was also on Michael Jordan's team, or the Wizards, that year. Interesting that Tyronn Lue's first, or not really, he played with Kobe Bryant when Kobe Bryant was in the beginning of his career, and then he ends up playing with Michael Jordan at the end of his career. Also, when Tyronn Lue became the coach of the Cavs, his first game coaching, they lost to the Bulls. The Cleveland Cavs also lost the first game of the season to the Chicago Bulls. So just pretty interesting that the Warriors are connected a lot to the 1996 Bulls, and the Cavs lost to the Bulls with both of their coaches on their first game this season. What even more sticks out about Patrick Ewing, though, he lost to Michael Jordan in the 1982 basketball championship in college. But he was also on the Georgetown team that beat Houston in 1984, and then they lost back-to-back championships to Villanova. And Villanova is the team that won the championship this year, 2016, for the first time since then. So, in the World Series last year, we had the Royals who won for the first time since 1985. We also had the Super Bowl that was connected to the 1985 Bears. I mean, if you don't believe me in regards to numbers, the Panthers or whatever tied the 1985 Bears record and all that. So it was connected to the 85 Bears. And then we have Villanova win for the first time since 1985. Villanova is from, outside of Philadelphia, also right next to where Kobe Bryant went to high school. And then they beat North Carolina. Give me a break, Anyway, look at this gematria here. Georgetown Hoyas, 197 and 80. The numbers connected to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that right there is supposed to say the Don Illuminati. But, interesting. It's just like I talked about before. King Charles, the Cavaliers connections, Villanova equals 108, just like Golden State Warriors. Villanova Wildcats equals 199 and 64. Cavs are in their 46th season. The 199 is the 46th prime. Patrick Ewing equals 64, just like Villanova Wildcats. They also lost back-to-back with 64 points. If you go up here and look here, it was 66 to 64. So they didn't win back-to-back, and they scored 64 points, just like Patrick Ewing. If you write out 64, it equals 49 and 157. Warriors equals 49, just like Chicago Bulls. But remember, I also talked about the glitches and the blackouts, and the NBA final or the NBA playoffs this year. There was the Spurs Grizzlies game where the power went out. There was the Golden State Warriors Rockets game where the power went out, and I can't remember it all. There was something else connected to the 157 though, and it was in regards to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I made a whole video on it as well. But 157 in Gematria equals 239 and 104. We're in the 239th year of the United States. 104 is also connected to the Cleveland Cavaliers, also to royalty, also connected to the Golden State Warriors and back-to-back championships, though, as they lost to Portland 137 to 105, which was 104 days before the NBA Finals began. So anyway, in this movie, the first thing I noticed, the team that the main character right here, who's also number 00, the Infinity, right, the 88, the Ouroboros, everything I've talked about, purple equals 88 and whatnot. But the team name is also the Panthers, right, the team that lost in the Super Bowl, and they even end up losing this game in the very beginning. And then the main character drives the ball in and scores, and then he yells at this guy who already got signed to North Carolina. Remember, he's trying to get into Georgetown. But he says, "What's up, Mr. North Carolina?" I mean, it's just pretty crazy. Like, there's been so much North Carolina stuff, too. Or at least Carolina stuff in general. The Carolinas are named after King Charles I, right? The English Civil War. The Cavaliers are followers of him. But, you know, we had Clemson from South Carolina who lost the football championship, the college football championship. Then we had the Carolina Panthers losing the Super Bowl. And then we also had North Carolina lose to Villanova in the NBA or the college basketball tournament. So, super interesting. It's the Panthers, and they even lose to this team or whatever. So, I mean, whatever, you know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in this movie, but just wanted to point that out, that they're the Panthers. He even mentions North Carolina. It's interesting that he finally gets into Georgetown, and just Georgetown reminds me of George. George also happens to equal 57. There's also the Prince George, who is third in line to be the king. If Prince Charles dies and then his dad dies, he would be King George again. George also equals 154 in Jewish Gematria, and the NBA Finals began on the 154th day of the year. But gonna leave it at that, you know. I mean, you can come watch this movie, take what you can from it. There's a whole lot of stuff, but interesting. It's Georgetown. It ties back into Philadelphia, a place I've mentioned a ton of times. And, you know, it has Tupac in it. Even ties into Prince, so gonna leave it at that. Like I said, have a great one.